Chapter 2, Looming in the Shadow. Rosa climbed up the slope, past the red danger zone signs, toward the crater at the top of Mount Vesuvius. It was hard work in the bulky, heat-proof suit. Marco, her colleague from the observation center, was behind her. Rosa thought they must look like astronauts exploring a hostile planet. "What's that dreadful odor?" asked Marco. "It smells like rotten eggs." Rosa sniffed. Even through the heavy helmet, the smell was unmistakable. "It's the sulfur from the volcano. The smell is a lot stronger than it had been, and the tremors from that earthquake earlier were a lot stronger than the last one, too." "So that means," said Marco, leaving the words hanging. Rosa nodded. "Vesuvius is definitely getting ready to erupt, perhaps even sooner than we thought. Come on, let's take the readings and collect some rock samples to take back to the lab. Then we'll program VEX and get out of here." Quickly, they got to work. Rosa called out the gas level readings, and Marco sent the data back to the observation center on the computer. As Rosa had suspected, the sulfur levels had risen sharply even since yesterday. She knew that sulfur dioxide was one of the main gases found in magma, the hot rock that bubbled up inside volcanoes. A high reading meant that the magma was getting nearer to the surface. Next, Rosa and Marco used an electronic thermometer to check the temperature of the rocks at specific locations around the perimeter of the crater. The rocks were all much hotter than yesterday's readings. Then they checked readings on the tilt meters that were dotted around the crater area. The tilt meters measured any changes in the slope of the ground. "Look, Marco," said Rosa. "These tilt meters readings are quite different than yesterday, especially in this spot here." "That means the magma is pushing up from under the surface, doesn't it?" he asked. "It certainly does," Rosa replied. Come on. I think it's time to get VEX ready. It's getting too dangerous here for us." VEX was short for Volcanic Explorer, a robotic vehicle that could collect and transmit data and video footage back to the observation center. It was designed to withstand the violent blast of a volcanic eruption, as well as the intense heat and poisonous gases that would be emitted. Quickly, they retrieved VEX from the back of the 4x4 and programmed it. Rosa watched VEX set off up to the crater, its long tracks moving slowly but surely. She sighed. She had done what she could do up here. It was up to VEX now. Rosa thought about Carlo at school in Monte Vista. What if the volcano erupted and he couldn't escape? She turned around to look back at the mountain toward the village. She was surprised to see a man climbing up the slope toward them. He wore ordinary street clothes instead of the protective gear, and he was filming with a video camera. "Who on earth is that?" she asked Marco. "No idea," became the puzzled reply. "But he must have walked right past the danger zone signs." As the man climbed toward them, Rosa could see that he was huffing and puffing, and his shirt was stained with sweat. Silly man, she thought. He looked somehow familiar, but she didn't know why. "Hey, isn't that Aldo Rizzo, the news reporter from the TV?" said Marco. "Of course," thought Rosa, "and he was here for a news story." "I'm sorry, Mr. Rizzo, but you'll have to leave," Rosa called to him. "The public is not allowed up here. It's too dangerous." Aldo kept climbing. "But I'm not just anyone. I'm a journalist," he panted. "I've got to go wherever there's news, and Vesuvius erupting is certainly big news." "Mr. Rizzo, you haven't even got a heat-proof suit on," said Rosa firmly. "I'm sure I can get one," he replied. "I didn't realize it was going to be so hot up here." He held his nose with his free hand. "Oh, or smelly. Mamma mia!" Just then, Rosa's cell phone rang. She saw on the phone screen that it was the observation center calling. "Marco, can you deal with Mr. Rizzo while I take this?" she said. It was the chief scientist at the observation center. As Rosa heard what he had to say, she felt herself go cold, despite the intense heat at the top of Vesuvius. Quickly, she hung up and turned to Marco, who was still trying to persuade Aldo to leave. "The satellites have detected a bulge just west of the crater that wasn't there yesterday," Rosa reported. Marco looked at Rosa for a moment, as if he wasn't sure he had heard her correctly, and then he started gathering up their equipment. "Good thing we've already programmed VEX. We better get out of here." "A bulge? You mean a bump on the side of the mountain?" said Aldo. "What does that mean?" "It means that Vesuvius is about to erupt," said Rosa. "Now let's get off this mountain."